At the Global Investigative Journalism Conference, we asked some of the world's leading experts for their top tips when investigating stories. Understanding and scrutinizing public documents are core skills of investigative journalism.
I am Floreen Simon from the Philippines. I'm a training director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. PCIJ, or the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, is actually about to celebrate its 3 decades of work in the Philippines already. And these 3 decades, we've been working with several documents that really help come up with investigative stories. Among these are wealth documents, which are documents filed by public officials declaring their assets and liabilities and net worth. It is important that journalists try to understand this type of documents because it will always provide you lead for stories that might later on develop into corruption stories. What's important as well is to get not just one part of the document, but also a series of documents in order to track whether there's a spike in wealth and whether there's something irregular in that spike of wealth. Another type of document would be budget documents. These are good reference documents in trying to uncover if there are any irregularities in governance. But it's also equally important that when we try to see budget documents, we also check expenditure documents as to check how the budgets allocated are expended by our government officials. Independent audit reports are also good references for stories on transparency, accountability, and good governance. However, we must make sure that we do not only read the summary report, but read the whole thing in order to get a better grasp of the context of the report and do better storytelling. Another set of documents that would provide good information would be campaign finance documents. This type of documents will give you a way to track spending limits, will also provide information as to donation limits and how much money is going around during campaign period and who is donating to whom. Last, I think, would be corporate records, which are good research documents. It will provide you a way to double-check entries made by public officials in their wealth documents, whether they reported accurately or not. And it can also give you an idea of the companies that campaign donors own and whether these companies may be in any way engaged in future public projects or not. Of course, it is important that we are able to understand these documents, but beyond that, we have to analyze and let these documents speak with each other. Working with not just one set of documents would be very good in coming up with better stories. Here are some tips that I can share with you. First would be do good research, if not better research. We all know that research is the backbone of every story. It will always be your best defense against any person calling you fake news. It will always be your best defense against any person suing you for libel. Patience and flexibility will be major requirements. Patience will get you where you want to go. Flexibility will give you an idea or give you that sense of where to adjust, whether you have to pursue it or just let it go. Second would be more resourceful. Data and information will not always be readily available. Data and information will sometimes be restricted. So you have to go through different processes. You have to get different connections to get what you want, what you need for your story. Third would be critical. In this day and age of information inundation, we cannot just always rely on what is given to us. It is not always important that we rely on speed. It is always more important that we are accurate in what we report. Fourth, do good storytelling. Yes, it is important to do good research, but it is also equally important to do good storytelling. Effective stories are those that are easily understood by readers. So that's non-academic, less jargon, and most importantly, people must be able to relate their values to the story. That is the challenge. Last, investigate and write to serve public interest. Public interest must be every journalist's guidepost and anchor. It should be where our motivation should come from. For me, the most essential tip would be to investigate and write for public interest. With public interest, you will never go wrong. Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism has had many stories published already, but the one I was responsible for very recently was a series of stories on campaign finance we released in 2016 to 2017, actually. We worked mainly on campaign finance documents we acquired from the Commission on Elections. This included candidate reports about how they spent their campaign funds, but as well we reviewed documents submitted by media outfits relating to political advertisements, and we also subscribed to a report from Nielsen Media, which monitored public advertisements aired over different media platforms. Among the findings of the series of stories was that national candidates, that means presidential, vice presidential, and senatorial candidates, spent almost 90% of campaign funds solely for political advertisements. This is about 5.4 billion pesos, or approximately $100 million, worth of political advertisements aired over television, radio, and print and online media. Comparing these documents showed discrepancies in the amounts of political advertisements that they reported. Surprisingly, we also found out that media outfits did not comply to the regulations. So in the end, we got this story published with several findings that include who donated to whom, how much money was going around during the 2016 elections, and how political advertisement plays a big role in the campaign of candidates in the elections.